I invite you to add to the chat box your name and where you're from and why you are attending this program today. All right. Folks are sharing in the box where they're from and um, their names and why they are here, the work you're doing. So we have Marcy in New Hampshire who's been working with rural communities to acquire and manage forest land as a community asset. Awesome. And then we have Janet with the Aspen group, and Janet loves this project. Thank you. We love it too. And Kelsey from the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. Thank you, Kelsey. Kelsey is keeping us on schedule and informed about what you all are sharing in the chat box. I want to hear from more of you. Where are you from? What's your name? Why are you here today? And we'll start in 1 minute. All right. Let's see. 7:45. That's Billy from Texas. Hey, Billy. Oh, thank you. Renee K. from Berkeley County. Abraham, also from Berkeley County, so that's near the Charleston area. Welcome. My name is Mavis Gregg, and the session is on forestry and wealth creation in the American Black Belt, with a particular focus on the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Project. Before I introduce my colleagues, I just want to share that I'll speak briefly about the SFR program, and then we'll use the remainder of the time to hear from Allison Perry, John Little, and Dr. Henry English about why they do this work with forestry and African American landowners, particularly with respect to the heirs property issue, and how they achieve their goals with the program. And then we'll get to hear more from them about their advice for community members and leaders and practitioners about how you can better support families on the issue of heirs property. So let's first hear about our guests. We have Allison Perry. He's the program manager of Roanoke Electric Cooperative Sustainable Forestry and Land Retention Project. Allison is retired from the North Carolina Forest Service, where he served from 1982 until 2006 in Wake County. He also served as a outreach coordinator for the North Carolina Forest Service in the state office from 2006 until his retirement. I should use air quotes, retirement in 2012. And then from there, Allison joined the Roanoke Electric Cooperative, where he assists forest landowners with a focus on assisting African American landowners to use their woodlands as a means of increasing family wealth and legacy in order to meet Roanoke Electric's mission of enhancing the quality of life in the diverse communities that they serve. And then we have John Little. John is the Executive Director of MacIntosh Sustainable Environment and Economic Development. John provides technical assistance to grassroots organizations in management, asset-based economic development, food systems, education systems, land preservation and retention, farmer development and capacity building, and urban rural market development. As Executive Director, John has generated over $8 million in funding for the organization. John has participated on the White House Rural Council and has presented during a Senate briefing on the USDA Community Food Program. Among many things, including being the Georgia site of the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Project, MacSeed works to build agricultural value chains in the Deep South, so Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and Mississippi. And collectively, these value chains have sold over $2 million in produce to wholesale and retail distributors. John is an outreach provider for the United States Department of Agriculture for Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and Mississippi. And MacSeed also manages an 1,100 plus acre forest land as their community forest. And then finally, but not least, we have Dr. Henry English. Dr. English is the director of the Small Farms Program at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, which works with producers to improve the economic viability of their farm businesses. He and his staff provide much needed education and technical assistance to socially disadvantaged, small, and limited resource producers in 22 counties in eastern and southwest Arkansas. His expertise focuses on farm financial planning, row crop production and marketing, livestock production, alternative crop production, and alternative crop marketing. Risk management, estate planning, crop insurance, and food safety are additional educational opportunities provided by the Small Farms Program. And Dr. English has a PhD in crop production and master's in soil fertility, both from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, and he did his undergrad at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. And then I'm Mavis Grad. I'm the director of the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Project. My background is in law, particularly working with families who have real estate that they've owned for multiple generations. So we're all very excited to be here and have you. Kelsey is our Zoom keeper. She's going to be monitoring the questions that you add to the chat box. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and Kelsey will make sure that we are getting those questions. But I'd like to share an overview of the SFR program. So we all know by now, I'm sure because that's why you're here, that the African American community has experienced devastating loss of land ownership over the last 100 years. After slavery ended, we accumulated a significant amount of acreage and peaked in land ownership in the early 1920s, but have lost much of that land, most of that land. And so the U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities, which is another forestry organization, wanted to see if they could address this issue of land retention in the African American community through forestry. And I just want to suggest, folks, if you aren't speaking, to mute your phone or your computer. We're picking up some additional sounds. So the U.S. Endowment wanted to see if forestry could be a way, sustainable forestry could be a way to stabilize land ownership across generations, build family wealth, and promote forest retention and health. This map here shows Black land ownership in the United States, and you'll notice that most of the ownership is concentrated in the southeastern United States, where this program is based. So through this program, landowners are able to create succession plans and address legal issues with their land. They're able to, and that part of the process is that they get forestry plans, they implement forestry practices, and they're connected to markets. The program began with 3 community-based organizations and now has expanded to 8 organizations. And so there are 8 SFLR sites in 8 states. We have Roanoke Electric, who's represented here with Mr. Perry. We have the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff in Arkansas, which is represented by Dr. English, who's here today. We have MacIntosh C, which is in Georgia and represented by Mr. Little today. And we also have two landowner cooperatives, one in Alabama, one in Mississippi. We also have Prairie View A&M University in Texas, and then we have the Black Family Land Trust in Virginia, and of course the Center for Heirs Property in South Carolina. So these 8 sites are very critical to the success of this program, because these are the organizations that are on the ground, that have the established relationships and trust in their communities, and have the deep experience and capabilities of working with the landowners who participate in this program. The partnership also expands beyond the network. There's the American Forest Foundation, the U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities, two USDA agencies, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, as well as the United States Forest Service, are partners to this program, along with two private foundations, the Mary Reynolds Babcock Foundation and the JCB Foundation. So this is a team effort and really relies heavily on partnership, in addition to those strong connections of and experience of community-based organizations participating in the program. We've had a lot of success to date. We have over 1,000 landowners, over 80,000 acres in the program. Again, our landowners get forest management plans and are implementing practices on the ground, as you can see in the slide. And we've also received recognition, including the highest recognition from the United States Department of Agriculture, the Abraham Lincoln Award for protecting natural resources. And this was one of our families, the Williams family in North Carolina. I just want to share one of our success stories. So, so another suggestion from the group, just mute if you are not speaking, so that we can eliminate the background noise and everyone will have the opportunity to hear what's being discussed. So our guests here, Dr. English, Mr. Allison Perry, and John Littles, each of them are in different states, are in unique types of organizations, but have all been working on this issue of land retention in the African American community and through the framework of forestry. I'm curious from the three of you, why do you do this work? And if you will follow up with why is this topic of heirs property a critical issue? So two-part question. Why do you do this work, and why is this issue a critical issue?
Want me to go
John,
first?
can I call on you? I'll call on John just to switch it up.
I thought we had a system, maybe. Hello, everyone.
We're innovative over here.
Again, my name is John Littles, and thank you for the opportunity to participate and to share a little bit about the SFLR program. So the question maybe is, why do I do this work? I think affording the opportunity to be able to help people, to help landowners, and specifically for the SFLR program, targeting African American families, which has been neglected in some ways, maybe displaced, disenfranchised, or feeling disenfranchised because of lack of resources, or community, lack of community development. And so we, as a nonprofit, has been doing this work for over 20 years in communities. And so this is an opportunity for us to be able to bring our expertise and resources into this project to be able to help landowners, and more specifically forest landowners. Our background is with been doing work for the past 10 years around agriculture in Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, working with farmers and getting them to the markets and helping them build networks and collaborations. And so it presented an opportunity when we were awarded this particular grant for Georgia to be able to bring those expertise into our state and our community to be able to help African American landowners and to change some of the dynamics of looking at their land as not being an asset to looking at it being an asset and not a liability. And so with the partnerships and relationships that have been built through this program, that's our attempt to do that. And along with having the opportunity to educate our landowners and our families about resources, conservation efforts, and how they can utilize their land as an asset in families.
Thank you, John. So for your organization, you are already working within the community and working with landowners, and this provided an opportunity for you to deepen the impact that your organization was already having by bringing in an additional resource for how they can take care of their land, but also grow their wealth. Dr. English, what about you? Why do you all do this work?
Okay, thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. Well, at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, I think we are strategically located in eastern Arkansas or the Delta. We're known for row crop and vegetable crops, and we have some livestock. So I've been intensively involved in row crop, vegetable crops, and livestock. We have helped those individuals, I guess, increase income on their land, use the USDA conservation programs, et cetera, take advantage of that and everything, okay? But we've done very little in forestry. I say in Arkansas, we do have a forestry school. It's the University of Arkansas at Monticello. They are a forestry school. They're generally responsible for the forestry work in the state, okay? We are known for aquaculture and fisheries. We take care of catfish and bait fish, okay? That's our specialty. So when this program came along, that was a great opportunity for us to work with people who were involved in a different enterprise, a forestry. So we jumped at that opportunity. And we had some experience. We had worked with Mr. Charlie Williams, who was working with NRCS at that time, on a forestry project that he had. So we continued his project and we started working with the forestry individual. To our surprise, we found out that, the forestry individuals were just like the row crop and the livestock individual. They knew nothing about the conservation. Most of them knew nothing about the conservation programs that were out there that was available to them. Most of them did not know that you could get a free conservation plan through the Forestry Commission. It was actually, absolutely free. And then another thing, even if you got a plan, you won't have any money to put it together, but that's where we found out about the conservation program. So with, by providing them with that information, we have really, really enjoyed, I guess, this particular program. Also, you asked about why is Heirs property education so critical? Well, from some of the literature that I've seen, this may be wrong, but they said 60% of African-American involuntary land loss is due to heir property, 60%, the involuntary, not involuntary, not the voluntary. So that figure or that has always, stuck with me. And I've always wanted to do something if I had an opportunity to do something about it. So education, I think, is the best thing, that we can do. So we started educating people, as much as possible, about heir property, about some alternative, or some things that you could do to clear up their property, and those particular sort of things. And with that, I think we have been able to, I guess, accomplish quite a bit as far as getting people started to talking and putting together plans and stuff. Okay, knowing what they can do, for the land. Okay, we are in the process of getting us another attorney, and maybe you've helped us on that a little bit, and we are working on that to have that. But those are my comments for that particular question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. English. Allison?
Good evening, everyone. Allison Perry, Program Manager for the Sustainable Forestry Project at Roanoke Electric. So one thing I'm quite sure is evident that these projects and organizations come from different spaces. I work for a rural electric co-op, which provides electric service to about 14,500 member owners. There are approximately 26 electric co-ops across North Carolina, and you may be one of the 900 involved in one of the 900 across the nation. And so when Roanoke Electric came into this SFLR program, it had no landowners in the program. It had not done any work around forestry before, other than just maybe utility line maintenance. Was about the length of the amount of forestry involvement that REC had involved. So with this project and through the vision of our CEO, Mr. Curtis Wynn, he always talks about pocketbook issues. How can Roanoke Electric be effective in resolving some of those pocketbook issues with member owners not being able to pay their bill, or enhancing the quality of life of our member owners through programs that come through Roanoke Electric? And he saw this as an opportunity to do just that, to help meet our mission. And through this process and through this project, we knew that in this area of northeastern North Carolina, right at the I-95 Virginia and North Carolina border, that this area has a vast amount of forest land and has a very vast amount of ag land, has a very robust forest industry in this area. Several different forest industry companies are located within the project region. And so this provided an opportunity for Roanoke to be out front and informing landowners and their member owners that, yes, this is an economically stressed area of North Carolina, but you may have an asset. You may not see it as an asset, but through the work with our partners and Roanoke Electric, we can help you turn that liability that you see it as a performing asset. And so that's how we got started in building upon that community-based involvement of letting landowners and member owners know out there all of the different programs that come out of Roanoke Electric, other around energy efficiency. And this just happened to be one that was really focused on forestry as a part of its program operation. And the Heirs property, we really didn't know much about the Heirs property. So we did some studies. We had some data that was collected and provided us kind of a sight of seeing, just how much of it was in this area. And that documentation that was done by one of our partners really highlighted how much was in this northeastern area corridor. You're looking at approximately 75,000 acres that through the tax rolls are identified as heirs property. So that is a mountain of a chore just to begin with. So we saw it was a very important process to take on, and we knew we would have to just chip away at it. But that's what we've been doing to address issues around heirs property. Not only heirs property, also understand that there are many landowners out there that do not have heirs property, and we want to make sure that they don't, we want to prevent that from happening. So we work with those landowners to ensure that they have wills, or they're going into a trust, or using some other estate planning strategy to reduce or prevent the era of heirs property happening.
Thank you. It sounds like from each of you that participating in this program has been significant for your organization, and that you're able to serve your constituents in a bigger way. But it also sounds like the heirs property issue was not something that you could avoid or not take on in doing this work, that you recognize through your experience with the landowners and also from data, that if this work in keeping land in the African American community was going to be successful, that you do have to pay attention to this issue of heirs property, and each of you have sought to address that both on the education part, but also connecting landowners with legal services to address those issues, and even be proactive in avoiding heirs property. So each of you have been in this program for multiple years, and we've talked about the success of the program and the need of the program. I'm wondering if looking back reflecting over the last few years that you've been in the program, what what do you think is important for this audience to know? So we have a mixture of landowners, service providers, folks who are just interested in this issue as a social justice issue. Reflecting on your experience in this program, what are one or two key points that you think is important for folks to know? And we'll switch up the order. Dr. English? One or 2 points that you think is important for folks to know about this.
Okay, I got used to the other order. No problem.
Try to keep it fresh.
Yeah, that's right. That's good. That's good. Well, the importance of having young peoples involved. Okay, you know, forestry, 25, 35 years, et cetera. It's very important to have young peoples involved. I know in some of the workshops that we talk about estate planning and succession planning. You mentioned that estate plan is just giving your stuff away, but in succession planning, you want to keep stuff sort of in the family. So to do that, you need to have somebody that knows what to do. Somebody that knows, something about the business, know how to run the business, or else it's just going out of business. So it's important that we have young people involved, come to our meetings, learning about forestry production, what's involved, the things that need to be done, and that. So it's critical, I think, to the, sustainability. I think that was one of the questions we had in the last session. Getting youth involved, okay, keeping them involved, in the business, letting them know about it, so that, I don't know, if somebody go off to California or something, they will still know about the business, understand it. And, that's very important, to keep youth involved to sustain the farm. And also, I would say education. Don't get continuous education. Okay, keep that education's out there. Like even of what about air property. Like I said, a lot of people still don't know about the Uniform Petitions Air Property Act. We've got to keep that education out there so our people will know it. And if there's any program out there to help them, make sure that information is also available to the people. But keep that information out there and keep with the education. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. English. John, what about you?
Well, yeah, great point, Henry. The next generation, I think, is very vital. Most of our landowners are up in age. And so it's important to engage that next generation, to be involved in the education and outreach of this project. I would say engaging additional family members in the heir property situation, multiple family members, and using the approach to engage them, try to engage them at the same time, same limit and level. That way everyone is hearing the same thing. It's not different opinions or what someone may have heard. That has been vital into this program and our process and approach, working on the legal side, whether that's family mediation to the table, and also addressing heirs property. So everyone have the same opportunity to hear what's being said and what could be done, and then also to get their questions answered as well. So it alleviates a lot of the interpretation that is going back and forth between families. So that's one of the crucial parts of that. And my second would be building trust with landowners, building partnerships and relationships with partners and the institutions that has resources, and building that trust in between and being a bridge between those landowners and the institutions, that landowners can access these resources, and getting them more comfortable and familiar with our landowners, the processes, as Mr. English said, educating them and providing that education and consistently working with them, being there with them in these processes from step 1 through step 5 to completion. I think that has been very vital, and that's part of the sustainability of that. I think that also helped build the trust to show completion of action on a process. And those folks tend to stay engaged with the process and stay engaged with the program. And so that allows for us to continue to outreach and build that sustainability of landowner and the institutions and the partnerships that this program takes to be a good program.
Thank you, John. Allison, before we move on to you, I want to summarize what I've heard so far, but also ask Dr. English. Dr. English, you mentioned a program that folks may not be familiar with. Was that a specific program? If so, do you mind sharing?
No, I was mentioning some, even though we've advertised, our SFLR project many times in the state, I still find that some people, just not aware of it. So that's why I said I have to keep it in the news. I still have to keep it in there because the other day I got this guy call me, hey, I was just found out about your program, can I join and stuff, like that. But it's important that even though we it's out there, still, if you can, keep it in the news. Yeah, keep it in the news as much as you can.
Thank you. So both of you have expressed the importance of education, both from the perspective of helping landowners understand what they can do with their land and how they can do it with their land, but also from a perspective of ensuring that you have landowners who are educated from generation to generation, that this is a team effort, both in the sense of the family who you're working with, but also with your peers, the other organizations that serve landowners or support landowners, that teamwork is a crucial part of this work. Allison, what do you think is important for folks to know about this work, thinking on your experience in the last several years?
So I'll just say first, I'll echo what Dr. English and John have mentioned thus far, and so I won't go over that again. But I would say looking at a couple of things from a 10,000-foot view would be, and also this is my comments around what's happening across America today with social justice or injustice, those types of things. And we all know that the conservation community has not been as diverse as it should be. So if you are a organization that's looking to, how do I connect, because I want to be a solution to this problem or to this issue, how do I, get the resources that we have to landowners that you work with or clientele that you work with? And it really all starts with a conversation with a local community-based organization like the ones represented here, or at the university like Dr. English, who's the director there of the program. To have those conversations, to have those authentic conversations, if I would say, and intentional conversations of being able to, we can provide a resource, how do we get that resource to the landowners and to the people we work with? Because there are many types of nuances that you must understand, that if you have a service or a program that you would like to get, and you have all great intentions, but just to come into a community and say, we're here to help you and we want to provide these services to you, oftentimes you may not, get good response, if you will. So connect and partner with those community-based organizations, have those conversations, find out where your missions intersect at, where there's a win-win on both sides, and overall the landowner or the group you're trying to work with or meet with benefits as well. Then when you kind of, drill down to the actual site level and you're working on a day-to-day basis with these, with landowners, one of the things that I think is so important is that you are or become a good listener. Oftentimes me being in the in state government for all my career, we oftentimes want to come in with a solution to the problem without hearing the problem first. And so I have learned through my experience that you sit there with our landowners, and we may have natural resource conservation staff with us or the local Forest Service staff with us, And the very first thing in most of that conversation, first of all, is going to be about the landowner. Listening to the landowner. What are their objectives? What is it they want us to know about their property, wherever that history may be? Let them talk. Then we look at the services and programs that we have. How can we connect those types of services and programs to help those landowners and that family to get to those objectives? So if there are two things that I'll leave with you today is from a partnership perspective, connect with your community-based organization, have those conversations, and be a good listener when you're talking with landowners that you're working with.
Got to unmute. Thank you, Allison. So I like what you say, listening. I do think it's easy to have a lot of experience and think that you know, but it really does sound like it's important that we listen to the landowners and not take for granted that they bring a lot to the table too, that will support success in this work. So we're at a point where we can open the discussion up for questions from the group. You can use the chat box. You can put your questions in the chat box, or if you want to signal that you have a question by using one of the reaction buttons, if you click on to the bottom right-hand side, the reaction button, and wave. I'm interested in whether anybody has questions at this point. If not, I have some questions for you. Just give a second or two for folks to ask questions.
And maybe it's where folks are thinking of their questions to ask. One addition I would like to add to that listening part is that not only do we listen to our landowners when we're specifically working with an individual family, but overall we listen to our participants to improve our program, because they're the ones who are going through these processes, and we listen to them to get advice and to get anything that can make us or have us provide the resource that they need or address a specific topic that they have not heard about yet or want more information on. So it's not only to help the individual family, but also to listen to improve our programs as we move forward.
Yeah, maybe
that just made me think about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna, that actually made me, that triggered thought with respect to the interorganizational relationships and the significance of listening there. I think from AFS perspective, as a new partner to this program and as a national organization that doesn't have experience, deep experience working in minority communities, we've had to listen a lot. And I think that's important too. And I John and Allison, you're on the SFLR leadership team. You've played a critical role in part of that, educating AFF, but I think that's significant too, and folks should know that. John, what were you going to say?
No, just adding on to what you're saying now is looking at cultural norms and how things have been done in the past. Now's the time, and these are great opportunity to make those changes, not only with the institutions and professions, but also with our landowners as well. And so again, we talk about bridging those two together, as a nonprofit or community-based organization, being able to navigate on both sides of that and bring those two means together to be able to utilize these resources and to change the dynamics in the communities. And then how do we do that long lasting to where outside of this program that the communication changes, the dynamic of that, and the behavior and the cultural norm changes as well too for other resources that are available.
Mavis, can I ask? This is Janet.
Yes. Janet. Yes.
I think it would really help me and maybe others get a picture of what it would take. So if I'm a landowner and I walk into the program, what are the steps I go through? What is actually happening to me as a landowner with Heirs property, whose door do I walk in and what happens in what order, just so people can get a picture of the program in terms of where you are at the beginning and where you are at the end.
Yeah.
So I think we all can speak to that. So I'll share some because we all have different processes internally. But for MacIntosh C, we have 2 tracks. So we have landowners that have clear titles. And then we have a track for those who doesn't have a clear title. And so those are the legal side. And then this is the progression side with the landowners who have a clear title. And so we would do an intake process application. Then we would do a one-on-one visit with them. And then we will connect them maybe with our forester to find out what are their needs, as Alton say, listening and finding out what are the needs of the landowner. And then from there, we would do a site visit with that landowner to look at their site and understand the landscape of that. And then from there, we figure out if they want to move forward with any getting a site management plan, applying for conservation practice through NRCS, which would be acquiring a farm number, and then on to applying for EQIP to get conservation practices. On the legal side, we will look at doing an intake and then looking at what are their issues. And so we do the general side of it. When it becomes more specific and detailed, then that's when we come out of the picture, and then that's between the landowner and the attorney. And so that's where, you know, all of that is resolved or put on the table to start a process as to why they're coming into the program. So I'll stop right there because I know Henry and Alton can share some of their processes as well.
Yeah,
And oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, before you do that, we have about 6 minutes. So if you would add, if there's anything different to your process, please add. And then I think Ruth Veranda has a question, so I want to make sure we get to that. Go ahead, Dr. English.
Oh, I think a lot of what John said, I think was about the same. I can't, you know, our process is almost similar. He pretty much described it. But on the air property side, we will provide as much education and information as we can. And then what we do is we try to turn you over. We want to turn you over to our attorney for more information. And then you work with the attorney for a small amount of time. And we're only going to allow so much time with the attorney. And then that you know, that we would take care. And if you go over that time, then you and the attorney would have to work it out.
Yeah, it's similar at Roanoke. We do an intake process that we gather as much information as possible on the forestry and conservation side, as well as the legal side. So we kind of meet you where you are, if you will. And once we get that in place, we'll have a first meeting will be with our initial meeting with our Forest Service, State Forest Service and NRCS. And we also hold, I will make this note, that we hold our meetings when we meet with the family in the NRCS or the Forest Service office. And we do that intentionally so that landowners can become more familiar with where those offices are and get more familiar with staff in NRCS, FSA. So they just really feel more empowered that they can come into those offices. And then we don't have a forester on our staff, so we rely on our partners, the Forest Service, to develop the forest management plans. And then we have attorneys that we can refer landowners to address the issues around heirs property or prevention of heirs property.
And just to comment on that, I think what's really interesting about this is that you're not going through the legal process and then the sustainable forestry sort of learning and training process. You're doing them side by side so that by the time the legal hurdles are cleared, the landowner now is already working or beginning to work the property. There's not another like learning period. And that to me is really smart because you're being very efficient. So that once they've got the title cleared or the legal stuff cleared out, it's already in production, right?
And I think that helps with the education and the understanding, and it leads to less disruption in getting to that point, clearing the title with the family members.
Thank you for those responses. Ruth, Veranda, I understand you have a question. Do you?
Yes, I do. I am a landowner of 38 acres in McBee, South Carolina, in 2 counties, Darlington and Chesterfield. And I have already been part of the Center of Heirs property and have participated in the 5 Woodland Community Advocate Program. Because Kenneth Dunn, a minority and a young minority, graduated from college in North Carolina and visited the property with David, it makes a difference when, like you're saying, as people come to your property, you could not only feel comfortable with that person, both of them, but I think the education part is being denied. Myself as a retired math teacher, I think more emphasis might be done on the associate degree in forestry, with forestry management, fire control, forest insects and disease, that kind of thing. And then also with all the online classes and programs available now, because of technology, we have to approach this, like we're saying, in a full circle way, because the young people need some direction. A lot of people are out of work and want to change careers. And not only myself as an owner, having had an equip contract and that kind of thing, we've come a long way and we have a long way to go. So that's why I'm involved in the Woodlands Community Advocate Program. And I hope to assist, support in everything we're talking about.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. And you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, there's a question about partnerships and institutions.
Yeah, so the question was, well, we suggested that building trust with partners is important, and the question is, could we elaborate on that? I can take a stab, or if one of y'all want to take a stab. Not a stab, I mean, you know the answer.
Was there anything specific that they might want to?
I think we.
Yeah, I know I've been
elaborate on
using that terminology personally myself, and I think again it goes back to the cultural norms where folks, do their job, or whether information or signups or whatever you may have. Traditionally, they're maybe not in our communities, right? People of color, right? And so how do we build that as an organization or as a lead? How do we build that partnership relationship and engage them in a part of our process, bringing them to the people, right? Having them present in front of our people. And so bringing that resources there so they can get familiar with the program, they can get familiar with faces. And then we invite them to every meeting, and most of them have become consistent with coming and being a part of the program and eager and willing to assist our landowners. And so I think that's the part we're talking about, trusting and partnership. And then where we're not having to 100% facilitate those conversations when those two entities are starting to connect. And so that, as you heard Alton say, maybe, we start out with if someone going to get a farm number, we take them in a system up in that office just to break the barrier, to have stability and to have confidence and trust, not only for the landowner, but even the institution as well, because a lot of times our people and our landowners, they are sometimes turned away for a certain reason. And so we try to 100% prep them prior to going to those offices and make sure they have all of their documentation and paperwork that is required. And we make sure that they understand the process and the policies. So when they do say something, that they have something to back that up. And then, so I think understanding that and breaking those barriers and cultural norms, when we send and say, hey, MacIntosh C sent you, they know that, okay, well, these folks know what to do and how to do it. And so that's building trust relationships and partnerships, and then also educating the institution about the program. And so they understand the purpose, and some are these goals intersect with their goals as well into the communities.
Mm-hmm. And I think, if I may add to your point, you know, again, AFF has been around for a long time, but this program is very unique for AFF as a partner. This program has a social justice core to it, and that's not normally what AFF does. And so again, building trust between our organizations has been very important, and building trust with other organizations has been really important, particularly so that we can identify those intersections of values and missions in doing this work. So I'll suggest that we end there. I think I'm happy to stick around if folks have other questions. I don't know if our other panelists can, but we do have, as Kelsey just shared in the chat box, at 6 o'clock, the special event with America's Forest episode that features the program. And if you want to add any additional questions or stick around, I'm happy to keep it open if we're allowed to, Kelsey. But thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you have enjoyed this breakout group as well as the whole program.
Thank you, Mavis.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Good questions.
Mm-hmm. Bye, Annika.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
My goodness.
Nice seeing you all.
Yeah.
I just dropped into this session and I picked the right one.
All right, of course.
Hi, Danielle.
Yeah.
Okay, take
Wow,
care.
good
Thank
to-
you.
Hi, Mavis.
Is
Hey,
it,
Lord, how's it going? Good, how are you?
Doing great. Yeah. I just wanted to say hello.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah.
Are you where are you based now?
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Nebraska. Okay, that's awesome. I was like, it's west of here.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Eunice has a new replacement now.
Oh, I didn't know she left her position.
Yeah, she retired.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Wow.
Anyways, don't worry.
Are you
Ooh,
her replacement?
I wish. No.
Oh.
No. They tapped someone from the Forest Service. Her name is Laurie Schoenhoven to take over. I'll send you her contact later. I'll shoot you an email. Yeah, later.
All right, great.
Yep.
Good
All right. Good to see you. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye. I'll check the chat box to see if any other questions popped up.